Well, hello, welcome to City Daily. My name is Ash. I'm one of the pastors of City Church Bristol, based in our Fish Ponds site. And I'd just like to take a few moments for us to think together about the church. What is the church? What does it exist for? When and how and why should it meet? These are probably questions that have been whirring around in some of our minds, certainly has been in my mind. And, for me, it's a little bit like algebra. Back in the days of school and GCSE. So with algebra, there are things that you know, there are things that you don't know, and a challenge is based on what you do know. You want to work out what you don't know. So those X's and Y's, and many of us in various areas of life are trying to work out the X's and Y's, and I'm sure that church is among them. And it's something that's been quite a challenge to me. It's if I'm completely honest, it's rocked me a little bit. But I've been encouraged this week as I've reflected on the Bible and I've spent some time praying. I've actually been really encouraged when I've thought about the church and what God has to say about it. And that's actually what we're going to do today. We're going to think about what God says about the church, because the reality is as I said, there are many unknowns, and when you have a number of unknowns, the best thing often to do is to base yourself or to found yourself on what you do know. And there are two core truths that I want to share with you guys about the church, two core truths which I hope will encourage you. They certainly encouraged me. And the first one is that the church is from God. So it's not something that's been kind of thought up by people, a nice idea, really clever idea, great initiative. It's not at all like that. It's something that was and has been given by God himself. And that ought to be a tremendous encouragement. The reality is that the church has always been in the heart of God, always been in the heart of God the Father. Even before anything was created, in his heart was this idea of a people belonging to himself. So it's been in the heart and the will of God the Father. But not only that, the church is made possible by God the Son, that is Jesus. So Jesus has given himself, he's given his life, his body and his blood so that we could come into that people, that family of God. He has made a way. The barrier that previously existed between people and God the Father has been dealt with by Jesus. But not only that, God the Holy Spirit brings assurance and comfort and confidence that we are part of his church, we are part of his family. He also leads and guides and directs. So the church is from God. But the church is also for God. And I think this is really significant for us to reflect on at this time. You see, the church speaks for God in the world. And that's quite a weighty thing to consider. The church is essentially God's mouthpiece. In the Bible, it's described as his body. And Jesus himself is the head of the church. And I suppose the grand mission of the church is given to us in Matthew's account of the life of Jesus. We are to go into all the world and make disciples, that's kind of apprentices of Jesus, from all nations, that's all people groups. And we are to teach them to obey everything that he has commanded. That is the purpose of the church, to make apprentices of Jesus. And that doesn't change. That was the case in 2019. It's the case now in May 2020. There is still a role, there is still a purpose. And now look, that may look different. And there are some challenges to work out what that difference is. But the reality is, there is still a purpose and there will always be a purpose. So those two core truths of it, the church being from God and for God, really ought to anchor our faith. They really ought to be a foundation on which we build in the midst of a lot of confusion and not quite knowing what things are going to look like even. We've got to be founded on that truth. And what that means is certain things don't change. So we can and still do worship God extravagantly. We can and still do pray fervently. We can and still do talk to people about who Jesus is and what he has done. Those things do not change. And I just wanted to encourage you guys with that today, because it's been an encouragement to me, and it's certainly taken me from a bit of a low back to a high again, to be reminded to recognize that the church belongs to God and it is for God and He has purposes for it. So guys, that's all from me today. Have a fantastic bank holiday, and we will be back same time tomorrow.